Today we're doing an oil change on a 2024 CRF300LS. Now this is going to be the same as a 300L, and I believe also the 300 Rally. Here's what you're going to need. You're going to need 1.6 quarts of 10W30 motorcycle oil, and this is what I use, what I recommend. It's the Amsoil metric motorcycle oil 10W30 and the KN112 K&N filter. Another good filter option is the high flow, and that's going to be an HF112. You're going to need an 8mm with a 1/4 inch drive. That's going to get your oil filter cover off. And then this is a 3/8 drive with a 12mm socket to get the drain bolt. Now, come over to the bike here. Oil changes on bikes are pretty straightforward. But this one right here, you got these 4 bolts. This is the oil filter. I'm used to seeing, like on the KTM, like a little cap cover like this with 3 or 2 screws. This one is kind of a bulkier cover here, and it's going to have a gasket that has this shape in there that you're going to want to be careful with. And then another thing to note on this bike, looking from the rear tire on the right side going underneath, this right here is not the oil drain bolt. Do not touch this one. I don't know what it does, but they told me not to touch it. This over here is what you want to loosen. This is going to be your 12mm drain bolt right here. And then of course when you go to fill, here's going to be your fill port. And this bike does not have a dipstick. You're going to use this sight glass right here. So when you tip the bike, see it sloshing there? When the bike's upright, it should be between those 2 lines right there, or halfway between the sight glass. Then once you get it to the level that you need, make sure your cap is on tight. Make sure this is clean before you take this off. Once you get that where you want it, then you're all done. Also, make sure you run the bike for a good 10 to 15 minutes to warm up the oil. That way it all flows out nicely and you get as much as you can out of it. And what we're draining right now is the factory oil. This bike now has 538 miles on it, so this is the break-in oil. This is going to be the first oil change on this bike. And we're going to be replacing it with the Amsoil 100% synthetic 10W30 metric oil. Your Honda GN4 10W30 OEM oil is going to be good for OEM intervals. Or Maxima, Motor are good options. This metric oil is actually rated to be run twice OEM interval or 1 year, whichever comes first. So this 100% synthetic oil is not full synthetic. There's a difference. This is 100% and it has no conventional oil mixed in with it. So this oil can take a lot more abuse and you have a lot more reserve. So let's say you really put some miles on it this year, and Honda's oil change interval is to 6,000 miles. Well, you could go 7,500 miles and still not have to worry about it. Just change it once a year. Or, I mean, if you're really putting miles on it and you're doing 12,000 miles, you're skipping a whole oil change and you're saving yourself, 40, 50 bucks. So the main advantage of the Amsoil is the quality, though. I have not found another brand. I'm gonna shake the bike here. There's a lot of good brands out there, but there's none that I have found that can withstand the abuse that Amsoil does, and also provide as good as performance results in testing. And that's independent testing, not Amsoil testing. Move the camera over a little bit so I can shake the bike more. Try to get as much of this oil out as we can. Yeah, see, there's some. You want to shake her good. As you can see, my crush washer here. And make sure you don't lose that. Alright, for the oil drain bolt, put it on by hand. Make sure your crush washer's on there. Once you got it snug, get your torque wrench out, set it to 18 foot-pounds or 24 Newton meters. That's all she needs. All right, here we're doing the 8mm bolts on the oil filter cap. Make sure when you put these back on that you do not over tighten these. These need to be hand snug and then maybe like 1/8 of a turn. Torque spec, I believe, is like something small, like 8 or 10 Newton meters. I don't have a torque wrench that's small yet, so I'm just gonna do what I know is the right tightness by hand, which is not very tight. I should have got the 1/4 inch impact out, buzz these off. All right, now be careful when you're taking this cap off. You don't want to drop. There's a spring in here and then also the gasket, so just put your hand under. There's your spring. Mine's staying seated in the cap. And make sure when you put this cap back on that you make sure this is clean of any debris. Here's your old oil filter. Make sure you grab your gasket off carefully. Set it somewhere clean. We're going to reuse this. Some people recommend replacing it every time. I'm not going to. I'm probably going to replace the gasket every, I don't know, 4 oil changes maybe. But it's going to be fine to reuse. Just, obviously make sure that you're not leaking anywhere. If you see some leakage around your cap, it might be, a telltale sign that it needs replaced. Here is our K&N. Your spring is going to go against this cap side, and this is going to go towards the engine. Take your finger, dab some oil, make the surface there. And it should seat right on there like so. And then we're going to clean out our cap. I made sure to soak the gasket here, that way we get a good seal on the gasket against the surface here. You want to make sure this is clean too. I'd probably start 2 screws on here, that way you're, oh, we just lost our spring. You got to make sure that that spring stays seated in there. So let's try this again. Make sure your gasket is even all the way around. All Alright, doing a ratchet was kind of annoying, so gonna very carefully buzz all these in. Make sure you snug them up, kind of like a star pattern here, and then go all the way around once. And we're just putting just a little light pressure with just one hand. Doesn't have to be real tight. Snug in about 1/8 of a turn and you're good. Make sure your gasket isn't sticking out anywhere. You got it all lined up. Clean this area up good so you don't get dirt collecting up in there. And now we're ready to put the new oil in. Make sure that your oil cap didn't fall in any dirt. Make sure your O-ring is there and your O-ring has some oil saturation on there so we get a good seal. Make sure it's snug. Bring the camera in closer here so you guys can see the sight glass. You can bring the bike level. And you can see the sight glass filling right there. With the bike upright, you should see it right in between those lines right there. So we're pretty much right at perfect. And that's it for the oil change on the 2024 CRF300LS or L. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. Please like and subscribe.